Welcome back everybody. If you watch my channel for some time now, you know that my Unturned 4.0 videos usually go something like this. I talk about a problem in Unturned and then offer my solution to it. This time, however, there will be no solution. I kind of just want to talk about a catchphrase which is commonly thrown around forums. Unturned is dead. And since I heard it by so many people recently, I thought it's about time to share my take on this topic. See, obviously there are still plenty of players playing the game, but compared to what Unturned once was, those numbers are almost laughable. So in a way, Unturned is dead, right? See, what we all have to keep in mind is that there has just never been a game which thrived for longer than a few years. Other than a few legends like Bad Company 2, which is still going strong today. It's only normal. In fact, what happened to Unturned is nothing else than what happens to all games after they have been out for some time. The player base decreases. Games have, just like almost everything in arts, a lifespan, and only very few legends will stay forever. But there's a big difference between a decrease in player numbers and a dead game. A dead game is a game which has literally no more players. Every Call of Duty after a year, as an example. No, seriously. Let's look at Homefront. It released back in 2011, was sold quite well, but after its publisher THQ sank their own ship and went bankrupt in 2013, the game servers shut down and nobody was able to play anymore. Now that's a dead game. But why is it so normal for a game's player base to peak so hard at one point and then drop relatively quickly again? A fact which is kind of hard to admit is that the majority of any player base of any game is made of casuals, and this counts for hardcore shooters like Escape from Tarkov just as much as it counts for classical shooters like Counter-Strike. People who wander around from game to game, playing a few, maybe even a few hundred hours upon release, or whenever an interesting update comes out and then move on to the next title. This is the big mass of gamers, the cash cow of the market, so to speak. If you ever looked at Steam charts, you can see this casual block of people jumping in and out of games whenever there's a sale or a major update, which is picked up by big YouTubers and streamers. They follow trends and are the force which transforms popular games into cash cows. They are the reason why games like PUBG and Fortnite got so popular. And as impossible as this might seem today, I guarantee you that in a few years from now on, nobody will be talking about PUBG anymore, because the casual player base will have moved on to other, more recent titles. In fact, this decline in players has already started since the beginning of 2018. If you look at the Steam charts for Unturned, you can see that it had two major player peaks. One during its launch on Steam, obviously, and another one during the second half of 2016. This was the time where all the content got added, which made Unturned into what it is today. Boats, planes, tanks, tons of new guns and Russia got added to the game during that time. And before that time, I remember my best friend once asked me, why does Nelson never just blast content into Unturned, like real content, not just minor updates and fixes? And, well, here's the reason. He did it, it generated some hype around Unturned, and shortly after, although more content kept coming in the form of curated maps and official maps, a big chunk of the player base left again. It's not worth it. The people who stick to the same game for more than 1000 hours are a tiny minority. Most people just swipe by when there's a major update added to a game and then leave it again. I mean, I'll be honest with you, looking at DayZ, this is exactly what I did. I was never too interested in DayZ, but when they announced the release of update 0.63, which promised to fix one of DayZ's main issues, which was its performance, I gave it a shot. For about 2 weeks. And after that I left, because despite some improvements, it wasn't the game I wanted to dedicate my time to. Hardcore fans, the core players, are the ones which keep a game alive after its hype. And this counts for every single game. So if somebody comes along and tells me how a game is dead by referring to its decrease in player numbers, I can't help it but just to tell him politely that he's wrong. As long as there's even a small amount of players around which keep a game's servers alive, it's not dead. This is probably the reason why AAA titles release once every few years, with the same issues and bugs the last title had. There is no need to develop a good game, since if you want to make money, you simply need to get the casuals on board the hype train and then send them off to your broken game and then feed them promises of a better sequel next year. Building up a player base of hardcore players which really appreciate your work and your game is just not really needed and will only prevent sales of your next big release. This entire story is also the reason why old multiplayer games like Bad Company 2 seem so hard when you start them up nowadays. It's not necessarily that the games were in fact more difficult than the games are nowadays, but more so that almost the entire community is made out of veteran players, who almost all have playtimes above the 1000 hour limit. Make one wrong step against such players and they will 180 no-scope you in your face through a fence.
Fucking hell, dude.
And trust me, I am not ashamed to admit that I feel like Unturned's PvP has in fact become noticeably harder. While you could easily dominate an entire arena lobby back in the day where Unturned was popular amongst casuals, other players, at least on PvP servers, are generally pretty decent nowadays. So what happened to Unturned is not necessarily its death, but more so just what happens to every game after some time. The casual player base moved on. Just like my ex. If you want to keep a game popular, you must appeal to the casual players. And the big question is, does Nelson want that? Or maybe even, do we want that? We all saw how Unturned changed in 2016, and not everybody agrees with the features which have been added during that time. Do we really want Unturned 4.0 to be a casual friendly game just in order to have a huge player base, or do we want a game which gets hyped and after a while is reduced to a smaller circle of fans, but therefore has character, unique gameplay and some features which will stand out? Now personally, I have mixed feelings about this topic, and the best solution probably is if Nelson just manages to implement features into Unturned 4.0 which don't interfere with the experience of the hardcore players but make the game more accessible for casuals. One thing I feel like has to be fixed is a topic I already talked about a few weeks ago, which is offline raiding. I'm not going to look at this again, but if you haven't seen it, maybe you should take a look at it right now. I'm not going to present any more ideas on what I would fix in the game just yet, because I want to spare those for a separate video. I just wanted to use this one to kind of get my opinion about the entire topic of Unturned is dying out of the way, and also to act as a hub for your ideas. If you want, feel free to tell me what features you would like to add to Unturned 4.0 to help solve this issue. I'd be happy to feature you in the next upcoming video. Thanks for watching, and until next time.